So one of the hot topics about Bully 2 that isn't discussing leak authenticity is debating if Jimmy Hopkins should return in the sequel, and the fanbase are surprisingly split on this, with some thinking that Jimmy should return as our main character, others thinking that Jimmy should just have a small cameo role, or Jimmy should just not appear at all and we should all just move on. Well, for today's video I'm going to be giving my thoughts on this topic. So first of all, let's go over Jimmy returning as our main playable character. Now, I personally do not think this is going to happen at all, for multiple reasons. Now first of all, Jimmy's story was wrapped up pretty nicely at the end of Bully 1. Like, pretty much everything that happened to Bulworth was tied up in a way, Gary Smith was defeated, Jimmy Hopkins wasn't expelled, he got the girl he wanted, pretty much everything, well, was a surprisingly happy ending for once. Also, Rockstar very rarely reuse protagonists. Now the only exception to this is John Marston, who's actually been a protagonist 3 times, while everybody else has only been a protagonist once. Now of course one of these appearances was in Undead Nightmare, which was an alternate reality DLC, so let's cover why John was playable in Red Dead Redemption 2, and there are multiple reasons for this. Now first of all, if you played the first Redemption, John had a really in-depth backstory which was mentioned a lot and elaborated on in the prequel, which in fairness Jimmy Hopkins does not have. The only sort of backstory to Jimmy we got was his home life was terrible and his mum remarried multiple times, and he also doesn't get on with his stepdad. There's really nothing here compared to John Marston's story, and the second reason was because of fan service, because John Marston was beloved by many who played the first Red Dead Redemption, and he still is, and the prequel of Red Dead Redemption 2 bridges the two games together in a near seamless way. Well, I wouldn't say too seamless, as the epilogue takes place years after Arthur's death, but the epilogue did a real great job with wrapping up Micah's story in that. And for what it's worth, Jimmy is liked by most Bully fans, but there is nothing that really warrants a sequel or a prequel with Jimmy. Now I know some of you are going to mention the original story which would have followed on from Bully 1 with Jimmy's story, but I'll get into that part later. Now, while they rarely do reuse protagonists, Rockstar do love to keep their series very consistent with each game tying into the others somehow, usually having some returning characters either as fan service or to help build a story connecting the previous games. Usually the returning characters are large characters, for example would be a good example of this would be Claude and Catalina, the two main characters of Grand Theft Auto 3. They appeared in San Andreas, which was essentially a prologue leading up to the events of Grand Theft Auto 3, or Johnny Klebitz and the Lost appearing in GTA 5. Now it's definitely possible that a few notable Bully 1 cast members could be returning, but I do not think they'll be in a major role, just merely there for fan service. For major characters, obviously this would be Jimmy, Gary, Pete, possibly Zoe, maybe some of the group leaders like Ernest or Johnny. I can't imagine somebody like, Ted would return, but, just basically major characters. Speaking of that, a major part of Jimmy appearing in Bully 2 would be the voice actor, Jerry Rosenthal. Now, of course you could say that they could just do Jimmy without him, but many fans would absolutely disagree with you. Jerry is the voice of Jimmy and is about as beloved by fans to his role as Jimmy as Ashley Burgess to Chloe Price or TJ Rotolo as Frank West. Many Bully fans will also agree that if Jimmy isn't voiced by Jerry, it's not really the same. Now, a major issue with this is, as I'm making this video, Jerry is 38 years old. Well, he'll be 39 on September 2nd, so happy birthday in advance. So I genuinely do not think Jerry will be reprising his role as a teenage Jimmy. Now, I hope I don't come off as ragging on the guy, but there are not many nearly 40-something-year-old male actors who can pull off a seamless teenage role. As teenage roles are usually saved for teenagers or early to mid 20-somethings who were blessed by the gods and look or sound younger than they really are. Now, this is also why I don't think he'll return as a playable character because, well, this was over a decade ago when the original Bully 2 draft was written, when Jerry was still in his 20s. I think maybe a decade ago Jerry could have done a fantastic job as Jimmy, but now that he's nearly 40, I'm not too sure he can pull off a teenage Jimmy. And speaking of that though, many of the Bully 1 voice acting cast are in their 30s now. Peter Vack, the voice of Gary, is 32, Matt Bush, the voice of Pete, is 33, Phoebe Stroll, the voice of Lola, is 36, and so forth, you get the idea. So I really do not think we'll be seeing any of these characters returning as teenagers. It's also very likely that all of the Bully 2 student cast at least would be teenagers or, mid to early 20-somethings. Well, played by should I say. After all, most of Bully's 1 cast was just that, like Jerry at the time of Bully's production was probably around 24 to about 26, it depended on when he got hired to play Jimmy. Peter Vack was around 19. But don't think that rules out Jerry reprising a role for an adult Jimmy, which if he is going to appear, I think this is very likely. An adult Jimmy role is probably a great way to acknowledge how much time has passed since the first game came out, assuming this game is set around 15 years or so after the first one. So this would put Jimmy around late 20s, maybe 30, something around that range. So, Jerry would be perfect to play the role then, as it's sort of still in the adult age range and that. It's a good way to give us fans some closure about what happened to Jimmy after the events of Bully. Like, did he and Zoe stay together, or did they split up, or what job does Jimmy have, and so forth. It'd be nothing big, but it'd be a nice bit of fan service to the hardcore Bully fans, alongside connecting the games together into a loose fit, sort of. Alternatively, it's very likely that they would just have like a single Jimmy reference. Not an in-character appearance of sorts, just like a simple reference like a line referencing him or a photo of Jimmy somewhere, something like that. Now I say this because of some of the Easter eggs in Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption, where say in GTA 4 there are loads of references to some San Andreas characters, like OG Logue appearing on a CD, and I believe there was one with Johnny Klebbits on the newspaper, or in Red Dead Redemption 2 where there was mentions of Red Harlow at campfires and so on. Now this is also a likely Easter egg route that Rockstar would take, especially if Bully 2 is a complete reboot of the series, which is a strong possibility. I know we'll definitely get some references to Bully 1, like I can see a Wolf Academy uniform being one of those references, or maybe a slight mention of like a riot at high school, referencing complete mayhem. But overall, I think it's very likely that Jimmy would be in Bully 2, but only as an Easter egg, and that's it. I do not think we'll ever be seeing Jimmy again as our main character, unless they can get somebody in who can pull off like Jerry's voice seamlessly, and obviously they're a lot younger, which I don't think they will, because as far as I'm aware it's very hard to replicate somebody's voice like that. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Jimmy Hopkins and Bully 2. Thank you for watching and have a great day.